All right, welcome everybody. We're going to get started now. Welcome to Creation Liberty Hour. This is going to be show number 12 for October 31st, 2011. My name is Chris Johnson. I'm the founder of Creation Liberty Evangelism, and our goal is to spread the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ with the creation message and spread the truth of God's Word. And we want to let everybody know right up front that we believe that evolution is not only just a dumb theory, but also a very dangerous religion. It's causing a whole lot of destruction, and we discuss that on our show. But we're going to cover a couple of, I guess, different topics tonight because tonight, as many of you know, is Halloween. And I was kind of curious because we have quite a few people joining us today. I was going to make mention, Caleb's joining us. We have, I guess, Greyhound Gal. I haven't seen her before, assuming it is a her. You never know. And Jewel is joining us. Rich is joining us. Tanya's joining us. So hello, everybody. And tonight, I was kind of curious because I know a lot of people were decided to join us tonight. And, you know, if you're not out celebrating Halloween, which a lot of people have chosen not to do, I was kind of wondering what you guys were doing this evening. So if you post that on there, I'd be a little curious, you know, post in the chat what you decided to do tonight in replacement of Halloween, which we will discuss in a little bit. You know, should Christians be celebrating Halloween or not? Well, I also wanted to make a couple of updates and get to another question, then we'll discuss the Halloween issue. First of all, I wanted to make mention that our Seminar 3, the DVD version of our Seminar 3 about dinosaurs and the Bible, is now available for free to watch on our website. If you go to www.creationliberty.com, click on videos, and you can just click on the one that says Dinosaurs in the Bible, Seminar 3, right there at the bottom of the page, and that will bring it up for you, and you can watch that for free. So hopefully we'll be making some more of those very soon. I'm kind of working on a few things right now. Also, let's see here. What was the other announcement? Yeah, we just made our first article on PDF available to download. That would be the article on the Halloween issue. I mean, obviously, we thought that was the right time, and this would be the perfect time to start that one. So you can go there. If you go to the Halloween article itself, which again, for those of you who may be watching this on YouTube or not on our website, you can find that under www.creationliberty.com. Go to Q&A on the left-hand side where it says Q&A. Click on that, and there's a article that says, should Christians celebrate Halloween? If you open that up, you'll see at the top there's an Adobe PDF symbol where you can just click on that, and you can download that and print those off and send it to whoever you want to. Let's see here. Caleb said he's passing out candy bags with tracks in them. Well, hey, way to go. That's pretty cool. Let's see here. Tanya says she is watching a VeggieTales movie and eating candy and popcorn. So, all of these very good choices. So I just want to find out what some of you are doing tonight. Anyhow, first I want to cover a question before we get to the Halloween issue. Last week, Clark from Idaho had asked us about, life coming from non-living living material. He got back with me in an email. Really enjoyed the show we did last week, and he had asked me. He says, "Well, how could I approach my teacher?" And I think this is, when he asked this, I was like, well, we better cover this on the podcast because this is something that a lot of people can be concerned about, especially if you're a student wanting to approach a teacher on this issue. Now, I mean, if you're an adult or a parent approaching a teacher, you might handle them differently. But as a student approaching a teacher, this can be kind of difficult. Now, look, I don't want to say this for everybody who has a degree, but there are probably those of you in the chat who know that some people with degrees, when you talk to them about something that they have earned their degree in. So if somebody has a biology degree and you're talking to them about biology, they have this, and this is not with everybody, but probably 90% of people I talk to have a little pridefulness and arrogance about, I studied this in college and I spent this amount of money going to college to learn all these things, so I know what I'm talking about here. And it really kind of shuts down any way that you can communicate with them, any way that you can actually get your message across, because it's kind of this I know it all already kind of attitude. And I'm not saying that everybody has that, okay? Just I want to repeat that again. Not everybody has this, okay? But there's been many people I've met who do have this. And those of you who have a degree can even talk about, when, you may have used this for that kind of thing, if people will be honest about it. And when you go to a humanist school and you learn humanist philosophy and you come out of that and they put you in these gowns and they have this huge ceremony and hey, you got in $50,000 of debt. Here's this signed certificate saying you got in $50,000 in debt and read a lot of books. It builds up a lot of pride in that. So sometimes it can be hard, especially with a teacher to a student, someone, especially if you're coming out of like 7th or 8th grade or something like that, but even when you get into high school and those kind of things, you're really going to have a hard time approaching a teacher. So Clark, there's 2 ways I would do this, at least that I would approach a teacher. Now, first of all, if you approach a teacher to talk to them, you need to be very careful about when you do it. Do not stand up during class in front of a bunch of students and seek to make a fool out of them, so to speak. If they're teaching something about evolution and that's been proven wrong and not true, and don't do it in front of the class, okay? That's not a wise idea. You're looking to get yourself in trouble. You're not really looking to help anybody. And all it's going to do is close off the door with the teacher. They're not going to listen to you any further, and you're probably going to have trouble the rest of the year with them. So I would highly advise not doing that. If you're going to approach them in private. But number one, probably the best way to do it, through your assignments. I mean, if you have to if they say write a 1 to 2 page paper on such and such topic, well, that is the best way to write about the creation topics, okay? And if they want to want you to write about, the geologic strata, well, then write about it. And all you have to do, I mean, you can go onto our website. I mean, we have an article called Geological Evidence of a Worldwide Flood. Go through and you are welcome to use the references and things I have on there to write a paper, a fully researched and well-referenced paper, and that you can get an A on by just writing from those particular references. Now, the teacher may not agree with what you're writing, but as long as you write about the topic and say, here's what the textbook teaches, but however, this is incorrect and it's been proven wrong, and you can show evidence for the contrary, well, they have to give you a good grade on it. And if they don't, you can always take it to a dean or a principal or something like that and dispute the problem. But that's a good way to reach them because they have to read the paper, so that's one way to reach those people. Another way would be to going to them in private. Now, there's an assortment of ways you can do this, but the way I would probably recommend to do it, get a paper or something. And you don't have to use our material. You're welcome to use our material. Give it to, a teacher and say, hey, would you take a look at this? You're welcome to use our material for that. If you don't want to use ours or don't think that, I'm a professional that they would listen to, there are other creationists who are professionals that, they can listen to. And I can give you, if you want to email me, I can give you a list of a lot of good people that, have some great materials, who are considered professionals and experts in the field, who they can take a look at either an article you can print off or a DVD or something like that. But let's say you use one of our materials, you can print off one of our articles and say, hey, you know what? I was reading this the other day, and go to them and give them a compliment. Say, I know you're really smart in this area on science, and I wonder if you'd be willing to read this and tell me what you think of this, because I'd like to hear your thoughts. Well, everybody wants to give their opinion. I mean, come on, who wouldn't want to do it? And I'm sure your teacher would be willing to help with that, especially if you express that you have an interest in a scientific field or something like that, and you wanted to get their thoughts on it. Now, they may come back with a really bad attitude about it. If they do, you just have to accept what they say and move on. All right, and the thing is, as long as they read it, there's a seed planted. Now, whether it lands on soil or whether it lands on rock is not up to you. That's up to our Lord Jesus Christ, so leave it to Him. Your job is just to get the message out there. So those are a couple of ways I suggest, but I don't seek to tell anybody what to do. I think you should listen to the Holy Spirit. I think you should listen to what God tells you to do on this situation, what He convicts your heart to do. Go ahead and do. And the consequences of that, well, yeah, you're going to have to face those, but, the point is you're trying to get the truth out there. You're trying to, we want to get people saved. I mean, that's the whole purpose of our ministry, so I'm sure if you're trying to reach out to a teacher, that's the end goal. You want them to be saved. So how you handle that can be, you want to do it very particularly. So I want to, just based on that, I just want to look and see if we have any comments or questions. Let's see here. Let's see here. I'm looking at the chat right now. And Rich is also joining us from China, just so everybody knows. He's all the way over there. He's actually getting ready for work this morning while he's listening to the chat, because we're doing it at 7 p.m. here, 7 a.m. there over for him. So, yeah, and Caleb's even getting ready to go to college, so, okay, all right. Well, if you guys have any questions, do me a favor, since there's so much chat going on in here, just type in all capitals the word question, and then pose your question after that. That'll help me. And if we get a bunch of different questions, what I'll do is if those who I know their name and know where they're from, or if you want to post that on your question, I'll give you first priority on any questions we run into. So moving on, we're going to go to the Halloween topic, since I don't see any questions on the chat right now. With the Halloween topic. Now, there's an article I wrote about this that you can go onto our website and see. For those of you watching a recording of this, if you go to creationliberty.com, you click on Q&A, and you click on the article that says, Should Christians Celebrate Halloween? That's the exact link that I gave a little bit earlier in the podcast. I'm going to be going over some of this. We're just, some of you may have seen this before. We're going to go over it just a little bit, and I may add in a few comments here and there of some things that I was reading about that I did not include in the article, just because I don't. The Q&A, what's difference between Q&A and the articles? The Q&As are supposed to be short answer. The articles are supposed to be very lengthy, almost like chapters in a book. And so the Q&A is just light reading that you can do, in your spare time. And the Halloween article is one of them. Now, I want to kind of paint the picture of what's happening here. Why did I write this article to begin with? You know what? Actually, I almost want to get that out. Hang on a second. Hey, Lorraine. Yeah? Can you come help me for a minute? Yeah. I'm going to get Lorraine's help. I totally forgot to bring something down from upstairs. I'm going to have her run and get it. Would you go run and get that up on the table by my computer? It's that article. Yeah. I'm going to have her run and get this. I had received, basically, it was someone who received it from someone else, who received it from someone else, who received it from the church listed on the website. I'm not going to go and tell what the church's name is here on the podcast. I want to give them some discrepancy. But I did end up having to list the church that was on here who wrote this, because I sent this and some concerns to their church, to multiple of their church staff. Nobody got back with me. Nobody. And so I didn't put their information up on it first, but I did later. Okay. Oh, Lorraine wanted to wave and say hi. So she is over working on a panda hat right now. Is that it? You're working on a panda hat for herself. That means it's a winter hat that will look like a panda bear. So for those of you who are interested, you can ask her about that. Anyhow, this is what I received. Just to show you, I've got it right here. I don't know if any of you can see some of this or not. Probably not on the stream. But I just want to show you that I've got it. And this was by the pastor of this church that's listed there, referenced on the website. He wrote this and gave this out to his congregation. And this was actually posted in a couple places around town, people thinking that they were actually spreading the truth when that wasn't really going on at all. So I wanted to quote from you what this pastor said in here, and I quote, he says, "Some of you may not know the history behind this fall holiday and may be opposed to how our society has turned it into something ugly, mean, and scary. I think we should reclaim it for God," end quote. Well, there's a really big problem here. Well, first of all, I want to make this statement. This man is claiming that Halloween is God's holiday, the origins of it are God's holiday, and that Christians should reclaim it as God's holiday. I would really like to know where the justification for this was, and the pastor, I'm going to assume the man was ignorant when he wrote this. I mean, obviously, I don't think the man's a liar. I think he just didn't know. But I would say that if I could get a message to him, if he ever hears this, I would say, Pastor, what you need to do is start researching these tracts and make sure that the information that's put in these tracts is true, because you have a responsibility to your congregation, okay? And we are going to be held accountable to Jesus Christ for the false things that we're teaching. I think we ought to be very careful about what we teach, and I try to be as careful as I can. And trust me, if you guys send me anything that you say, well, I saw this on your website and this is incorrect, and I research it and find that it is incorrect based on what you sent me, then I'll go back and I'll change it. I've done that many times for many different people on many different subjects, okay? I'm not opposed to being wrong on an issue. But when I sent this article to them as a correction, they would not respond to it. Now, I've gotten responses from them from the same email addresses I sent this to before on past topics, but when I sent this, they refused to respond to it at all. So I think churches ought to have a willingness to be corrected. I don't think that's something that Christians should go around thinking that, I'm holier than thou and anything that I say on here is absolutely correct. I think we ought to be willing to be corrected. So let's go over some of the what this tract says. This tract is from I have a picture of it here on the website. It's from the Tract League, and it's entitled, "Say, why don't you make this a real Halloween?" And here's what it starts off saying. It says, "A long time ago, Christians decided to celebrate All Saints' Day on November 1st every year." Stop right there. First of all, the Christians didn't decide this, okay? It was Pope Boniface IV. He decreed it to be a Catholic celebration in the early 7th century. But what this tract, first of all, is trying to make it seem like is that all Christians everywhere just poof, oh, wow, we just decided one day to make this the day that we were going to do this. Are you kidding me? I mean, look, holidays get, started. Somebody decrees something a holiday for one reason or another, okay? People just don't automatically all as one just decide, poof, oh, well, we're going to have a holiday out of nowhere. And the tract continues, quote, it says, quote, "It," talking about All Saints' Day, "was a special day to help those who love Jesus remember the saints, people who loved Jesus so much they gave their lives to help others." Now, first of all, the saints and martyrs that are talked about for All Saints' Day. All Saints' Day, we need to understand, is a Catholic holiday. That is not a Christian holiday. It's specifically a Catholic holiday. And the saints and martyrs referred to by the Roman Catholic Church are only a small handful of people that have been selected by the Pope to represent saints and martyrs. These saints and martyrs are not the real saints and martyrs. The real saints and martyrs were actually killed by the Catholic Church during the Inquisition, during the Dark Ages. It was people, when the Roman Catholic Church during the Dark Ages, we'll talk about more of this when I get my King James article out, how during the Dark Ages was the suppression of knowledge, suppression of truth by the Roman Catholic Church to try to keep a true English Bible, those are the originals from Antioch, from being seen by anybody else, and it just caused all sorts of problems. And it was the Christians who truly were, adhered to the Spirit of Jesus Christ and were wanted to preserve His Word, kept that in store and in secret to, out of the way, out of the vision of the Catholic Church, and was able to preserve that over time. So the thing is, you have to understand, by their own definitions, and I would request that you look up the word martyr in the Catholic Encyclopedia and read through how they define it. It is only specifically tied to those who protect the Holy See. It has nothing to do with the true martyrs of Jesus Christ. It's those that the Pope has decreed have defended the Catholic religion for so many years. Those are the people considered martyrs. So the All Saints' Day is not any kind of, I would argue that it's not any kind of biblical holiday, though some people may apply it, some Christians may use that Catholic holiday and apply it to, the true Christianity, the true Protestant Christianity. But the problem is, I don't think, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Now, with my conclusion, the conclusion I'm going to give is probably going to be the thing that needs to be said with that once we get to the end of this. But I'm going to, again, with this Tract League tract, quote, "The evening before this very important day was called Hallowed or Holy Evening. People were asked to use this time to get ready to remember the saints who loved Jesus. During this hallowed evening, Halloween, the poor could go to the homes of the Christians and ask for food, who would bake some special cakes and put a candle in the window to welcome the poor. Children could watch by the window, waiting for a poor family to come. But some people didn't like the Christians. They began dressing up like witches, devils, and ghosts, and knocking on the doors of those who followed Jesus and frightening the children. It was a cruel thing to do, taking a holy evening and turning it into something evil." End quote. Well, the guys from this tract, either they are absolutely ignorant and they didn't do any research on this issue, or they lied. I don't know which one it is, but what they just said here is nothing close to what Halloween actually represents. Now, if you look at our website, I'm following through on this article, I have a picture here of the symbol of what you call Samhain, and a modern-day ad for a festival of Samhain. And I wrote about how a couple thousand years ago there were Celtics. It was basically the pagan witches of their day, which they called Druids, were celebrating the ceremonial tradition of Samhain, And Samain is supposed to be, a lot of the Christians say it's a pagan god, and technically that would be true because of how it's treated. But the pagans say, no, it's not a god, it's a demon summoned by a warlock long ago. Well, that makes everything better. So the Celtics thought that October 31st represented a day where the world of the living and the world of the dead mixed for one day in between, the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. So during the ceremonial tradition, the Druids, which are those Celtic pagan warlocks, they would sacrifice crops and animals to the demon Samain over enormous bonfires. I mean, they would build these gigantic bonfires and sacrifice stuff to these. So that's why a lot of Christians call it a god, because they're sacrificing to this god. The people who participated in Samain would dress up as ghosts and spirits, intended either to frighten others or, in some cases, to pretend to be possessed by spirits themselves. The celebration of Samain still continues today in some parts of the world, inviting all sorts of demonic entertainment and unholy practices. And if you check out the picture next to it, I mean, you see this. I think, now I'm not sure exactly what this meant, but I think this was an advertisement for the festival, but the next to it there is, I think that's an advertisement for a band, and the band is called Killing Children. So I'm, boy, this sounds Christian so far. This must sound like a holiday of God. And I'd like to remind you guys about Proverbs 8:36, and let me read this to you. Proverbs 8:36 says, "But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All that hate me love death." God says if they hate me, God, that's what he's talking about, if they hate God, then they love death. And that is exactly what we see in a lot of, I see people that, they just love horror movies. They love to be scared out of their wits, and, and it's like all the movies that, the horror movies, I don't ever watch horror movies. I watched one when I was younger, a couple when I was younger. I can name you which ones I've seen. And I'm telling you, I've never liked them. I don't understand why anybody would want to put that stuff into their mind and give themselves nightmares and stress and all sorts of other stuff. But these people love to do it because they hate God. I mean, they love death. The more death and gore and destruction and horror that they can get, they love those things because they abhor God. So I wanted to check on the chat before we continue here. Did anybody have any questions or anything that, let's see here. I think everybody's just discussing other things. Blah, blah, blah. We have some other people joining us. We have quite a few people in here tonight. So let me see here. I'm trying to get down to the chat. My chat room is kind of messed up. There we go. Well, okay, and Clark says, okay, what about, what if I like scary movies? Well, there's nothing wrong with liking scary movies, okay? I'm just saying that the general public is, and maybe I should clarify what I mean. Perhaps I didn't deliver this properly. The public is generally wanting more and more. Just like, whereas the Roman society, with the Colosseum and all that, they needed more death, more gore, more blood, more, it had to be more dramatic and more stuff because, as you are entertained in one area, if you go back and you see the same thing repeated over and over, then you're like, well, I've seen this before. I want to see something new. And I mean, that's where it starts the bottomless pit of mankind's desires. You have to have something scarier and scarier and more horrifying in order to fulfill those needs. And I'm telling you, that can lead to some bad stuff. So, it's nothing wrong with, if you want to be scared, but I'm telling you, if you really want to be scared, you should start really studying nonfiction. Study the history of the world. Study the history of the Bible. Read Fox's Book of Martyrs. Read the Book of Revelation. You want to be scared? I mean, really scared? That I would highly advise to start doing, and then you'll definitely be scared. But anyhow, I'm going to continue on here. So the Celtic pagan tradition was absorbed into the Roman tradition. Okay, as Rome conquered, parts of England, what's now the UK. There was some controversy because a lot of the Celtic pagan traditions in that area were very, very popular. And if the Romans come along and fuse in their traditions and because you have to understand the Roman society, even though they were wicked, they were abhorrent to any kind of sacrifices. Okay, sacrificing animals and all that to any kind of gods. They were kind of against that. It was not really accepted in their society, but they didn't want to make Samain completely illegal. because if they did that, they're gonna lose political clout, basically. And that's what the whole thing was. It was a PR move. So what they did is they fused the celebration of what they called Feralia, which is, and there's a couple of different ways to pronounce that. This is the way I found in some books, and it was about a 50-50 split, so whichever way you want to pronounce it. But Feralia was a holiday for the dead in Roman society. That was where they worshipped their dead ancestors and things like that. It was fused in with the Celtic celebration of Samhain, and the two were celebrated together on October 31st for many centuries after this. So what happened around 608 to 610 AD? Catholic Pope Boniface IV, which we mentioned earlier, he made All Saints' Day, and it was originally celebrated on May 13th. Now, there's also another celebration called Limeralia, where families, what they would do is get together and they would chant certain phrases and throw, certain, I think it was these certain little black beans and stuff around over their shoulder. The father would get up and he would throw these, and they would do a list of superstitious things to ward off the dead and ward off the evil spirits from their house. It was this tradition they had. But that also happened on the same days that the Catholic Pope was lining this up. So it's been debated whether the Pope had actually tried to fuse these together, because you have to understand the Roman Catholic Church, just as Rome itself, you see, Rome originally had the habits of fusing pagan religions together with their own traditions. And that's exactly what the Catholic Church has done for many, many centuries. They picked up the same practice of using the pagan practices into the Roman Catholic Church, which is why so many things got fused together in there. You'll see all sorts of pagan symbolism in the Catholic Church. We could talk about that for a long time too. But continuing with this, in the mid-8th century, which would be mid-8th century is 800 what? No, 8th century. That's around 750 AD. I forget. It's like between 740 and 750 AD, something like that. By decree of Pope Gregory III, he changed the date of All Saints' Day from May 13th to November 1st. So it was in correlation with the already widely celebrated All Hallows' Eve, which is Samhain and Limeralia, which were celebrated together. This was still being celebrated. And many cultures today still recognize All Saints' Day, visiting graveyards and lighting candles for the dead. There are Catholics that still do this today. And I don't know if that's something they're going to do tomorrow or not. I would be curious to see because there's a Catholic church about 10 minutes from here, and they have a real big graveyard behind their church. I was kind of wondering if people were going to go out and do that. I would love to get some film of it to put on here. But now the tradition of cakes, nuts, and other goodies to be handed out to children, this was only done in some rural parts of Portugal, which later carried over into the Americas. And you can see Smith and Chetham in a book called A Dictionary of Christian Antiquities. That's what I meant to say, where they talk some about that. And a photograph I have on here is a picture of some people around the world. I mean, they still celebrate All Souls' Day, and which is what we're going to talk about next. Around 1000 AD, All Souls' Day was initiated by the Roman Catholic Church for November 2nd. It's still called Day of the Dead in Latin America. And the Catholics attended Mass and gave prayers for the souls of the dead who are still in purgatory. And purgatory is another false teaching not based in Scripture. If you guys send me, or you go onto let's see here, you go to on creationliberty.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, you click on articles, go scroll down to the bottom. There's one called Corruptions of Christianity, Roman Catholicism. If you click on that, there's a chapter entitled Purgatory, and you can read a lot more on that. Eventually, All Souls' Day and All Saints' Day were combined into one Catholic decreed day, which in many places of the world today, Catholics are still required to attend Mass on November 1st for All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day combined, or the day closest to it. It just depends on which day of the week it falls. And all pagan holidays are like that. I mean, that's how they do it with Easter. It just depends on which, when the full moon is and that kind of thing. And in some places of the world, All Souls' Day is still celebrated with a lot of the pagan origins attached to it. Now, All Hallows' Eve has been shortened to Halloween, as many people know that, and the demonic pagan traditions have survived for over 2,000 years. And a lot of these same pagan practices that they were practicing 2,000 years ago are unknowingly being practiced by Christians right outside right now. I mean, we have people, right out my window out here running around trick-or-treating with these Christian families and all that, doing these things and dressing up as ghouls and witches and all this other stuff. Well, I mean, that's kind of interesting. I don't know why someone would claim that we were supposed to reclaim those practices for God. So I wrote in here that the story told by the tract is based on Roman Catholic doctrine of praying for the dead and purgatory, which are complete Catholic heresies, basically. They're not supported in the Holy Scriptures. But the author of the tract is praising these pagan traditions and trying to fuse them with demonic origins of Halloween. The tract finishes up by saying the following, quote, "For me, this is a special night because it gives me a chance to urge you to follow Jesus, who came into the world to take all the punishment for sin, so you and I can be right with God." What? That's exactly what they wrote. I couldn't believe he wrote this. It says, if you decide to follow Jesus, you will turn this into a real Halloween, a holy evening, and you will make Jesus and the angels sing. Please, sir, back that up with some scripture. I would love for you to give your scriptural references for that. But you'll notice in the tract there was no reference to scripture. It wasn't there. So by saying that, this tract is strongly implying that if you love Jesus, you will celebrate Halloween and attempt to convert a pagan religion of druidic witches into something holy. I mean, that's disgusting. Why would we do something like that? Now, the pastor at the church aforementioned said the following, quote, and this is in this right here. It says, "The above tract was written for children and may seem simplistic, but I shared it because I want you to realize that not everyone has given up on celebrating events just because Hollywood or pop culture decides to ruin them." So basically, and after that, and at the bottom here, he puts everybody he says, go put on your best costumes and join us for, our Halloween celebration. Well, first of all, I have to make mention that Hollywood, or Hollywood, whichever one you want to call it, but Hollywood didn't ruin anything about Halloween. Halloween is just a pagan origin, okay? All Hollywood can do is advertise it to the masses. That's all they're going to do. And they're spreading on these pagan traditions and helping keep these things alive, basically. So reading on here, some things that I wrote. I said the real purpose behind unresearched tracts like this are not for education, but rather to allow Christians to excuse their way into doing whatever they want, whenever they want. Okay, this allows Christians to be more concerned about how entertained they are, instead of concerned about doing what's right and not being involved in demonic pagan traditions. Okay, so the question, again, should Christians celebrate Halloween? And I mean to say this in all sincerity, I don't know. I don't know, and I'm not going to tell you guys what to do, okay? You guys are welcome to make whatever decisions that you want, okay? If you go out and you go trick-or-treating and dress up and all this and celebrate the Halloween, okay, and you say, well, but I'm saved by Jesus Christ, okay, not celebrating Halloween is not a requirement for salvation. So, just because you go out and celebrate Halloween doesn't mean you're saved, okay? But I do want to ask a question. Where do you draw the line? Where's your line? I mean, we just walked by a house today that had, skeletons and ghouls and just people. Just across the street from us, they have a guy, they have a guy hanging, with a knife in his hand and his throat slit, and he's hanging off of their porch. Where's your line? I mean, this is pagan stuff. So, whatever you want to do, that's your business. However, when children whine to their Christian parents, this is where often these kind of things start. They're like, but I want to go trick-or-treating, okay? The children want to do what everybody else is doing. Do you as a Christian seek to make excuses to allow for childish yearnings? It's a question we all have to ask ourselves. According to my Bible, our instructions come from the Lord, so I think there's a much more important question we need to ask. Instead of saying, well, why can't we do what everybody else is doing? We should be asking, do our actions please the Lord? Do they? So I'm not telling Christians that having fun is wrong, but there are many different ways to have fun and still not participate in demonic pagan traditions. Why don't you guys if you wanted to get your church together, why don't you get out a projector and a Wii system and have a Wii game tournament? That could be a lot of fun. And then you could pull in a lot of kids from, there'd be, especially if you have prizes and things like that and they can compete and all that kind of thing. You'll probably end up pulling in most of the neighborhood's kids that aren't going to participate in going trick-or-treating. They said, man, I was involved in a game tournament. It was a lot of fun. So there's a bunch of I'm just throwing out some ideas is all. You can do whatever you want, but there's tons of different ways to have fun and not participate in this junk. So I mean, I don't know why we're making so many excuses. A lot of people say, "Well, I had fun when I was a kid and I had fond memories of this." Okay, well, they're convenient excuses for Christians to commonly do whatever they want without thinking about what does God think about what we're doing. So instead of trying to claim evil traditions in the name of Christianity, what we should start doing is trying to reclaim things in this country that were originally started for the advancement of Christianity, like, I don't know, biblical education. I'm seeing a lot of biblical education being removed from many of the common churches I've been to today. I mean, there's many around this area alone that are not really digging in to all the Word of God. They're digging into specific places they like, but, from different sermons I've heard, they're not really digging in and getting a real solid biblical education to be a foundation of. I'm not saying all churches are like that. We know of some churches, and we're really good friends with some people who have some wonderful education systems in their church, but many of them are lacking this. So instead of, the church is making so much effort to, try to promote Halloween, why don't we get back to biblical education? That'd be phenomenal. So anyway, I wrote this article not only as an opportunity to help the pastor of this church educate his congregation, because I really want him to do that, but also for all Christians, all American Christians, that they need to take the words of the Lord more seriously. And I want to draw your attention to 1 Thessalonians 5:21 again, which says, "To prove all things, hold fast that which is good." If you are a pastor out there or a leader of a Bible study, don't just go throwing out the first thing you find, which is what I believe this guy did. He found this tract, or he knew of it somewhere, and he just threw out the first thing that he found and didn't really research it. You're to prove this first and then, teach it to your congregation. But don't just throw it out there with, a hope and a dream and a wish and a prayer that it's true. Go find out, and that's our instructions. This is a commandment. We're supposed to do this. And also I want to draw your attention to Matthew 7:18, which says, "A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit." So I think we should probably stop trying to get good fruit out of an evil tree. Wouldn't that make sense? So I'm saying, like I said, you do what you want, what you choose to do. As for our household, after we found out the truth of this, my wife and I said, look, we're not having any more to do with this. And she used to talk about how she had, costume parties when she was younger. They didn't actually, it wasn't Halloween. They just had a costume party, where they showed up to things and all that. And you don't have to do it on Halloween. You don't have to celebrate all that junk. There's all sorts of things that you can do, okay? But, I could tell some stories and all that, but I think I'm going to go to the chat and check out, see if we have any questions or comments from the chat room. Let's see here. I am reading some of these. Who is... well, I'm still trying to find where I was. Well, see, this is why it's so much easier to have a producer that can send me specific things, because now I have to look through everything that it is. I'll tell you what, if you guys have any questions, let me know, or if you guys want to comment for anything in the chat room, I'll just read it right off here on the stream. Let's see here. Tonight, alternatives. So, hey, yeah, and you guys are joining us here. I mean, that's one of the alternatives. You can come on the podcast, and we can discuss some of these issues. And Clark has also joined us. Clark from Idaho. I think that's the same. Yeah, that's the same one. So it's good to see him there. I don't know who this is. JL White 20. I don't know who that is, but welcome to the show. And well, if we don't have any other comments or questions, I think that's all I was going to cover tonight. Maybe the reason I'm not getting many questions is because I'm covering things thoroughly. I don't know. That's the only thing I can assume. So. Anyhow, so I hope you guys are having a fun evening, nonetheless, even if you're not participating in Halloween, which what I'm seeing here is that a lot of people on here aren't. And I think that article got kind of popular pretty fast, especially around this time, so I'm glad it has helped some people. Again, the entire purpose of our ministry is to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. We want to educate people with the truth. We want to arm them with the truth. So that way you go out there prepared to have the ammunition you need to go out and spread the truth of God's Word. And, sometimes we even have to be, people they say, oh, ammunition, he must be, he's going to go out and shoot somebody. No, 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 no. You don't understand what I'm talking about. It's armed with the truth, okay? We don't go out and shoot people. We don't go out and kill people. We don't do those kind of things. We are instructed to be, we're supposed to be loving and peaceful and charitable and those kind of things. But, and we will defend ourselves. Christians defend ourselves. Like we talked about in one of the podcasts, there is, biblical justification for self-defense. And that kind of thing. But we do things lovingly and peacefully. We want to try to win people over to Christ as much as we possibly can, though we can't do it ourselves. Christ has to do it in the end. We do our best in order to make sure that people have the truth available to them so that they can make an educated choice. So, yes, Clark, sword of the Spirit. That's exactly what maybe the phrasing I should have used, sword of the Spirit. So anyhow, I hope you guys keep your porch lights on, and I hope, especially to Caleb, who is handing out tracts, I hope you have a lot of success in that, and hope we can get somebody saved from those. So anyhow, I think that's all we're going to have for tonight, and I just wanted to remind you all before we stop off. Next week's show is going to be on, I think November 7th, Monday, November 7th, or is it November 6th? 6th or the 7th, I don't know. Check the website later. I'll make sure I have the right date. And that'll start at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I just want to remind everybody that one quick thing that you do not need is scientifically proven. You do not need a parachute to skydive. It's absolutely true. You only need a parachute to skydive twice. Okay? So anyhow, we're going to sign off here tonight. It was thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you guys next week. And have a fun-filled evening.